The great chamber of the Galactic Council had always been a place of order and pride. It wasn't just a room. It was where empires made their voices heard. Every species in that chamber thought they were the future, the wisest, the strongest, the most evolved. Some of them had existed for thousands of years, watched stars die and be born again. And in the middle of all that ancient pride stood a single human. He didn't yell. He didn't plead. His voice was calm, still, but every word hit like a blade drawn slowly across the skin. "We do not want war," he said, his voice carrying through the silent chamber. "But if you push us, if you provoke us, if you try to take what is ours, you will regret it. Humanity will not kneel. Humanity will not break." There was a beat of silence. Then came the smirks, the whispers, a few soft laughs. The kind that powerful people make when they think they're above danger. Some rolled their eyes, others shook their heads. But in the far corners of the chamber, there were those who didn't move. They remembered things the rest chose to forget. Border skirmishes, trading disputes, piracy gone wrong. And always, somehow, humans survived it. The council speaker, an old creature with skin like polished stone and eyes that had seen centuries, leaned forward. "Are you threatening the galaxy, human delegate?" The man didn't blink. "No, I'm warning you. Leave us in peace." And then came the laughter, loud, confident, mocking. Empires that had stood for ages sneered at the warning, called humans dramatic, reckless, foolish, children of a small blue planet who didn't know how big the galaxy truly was. But a few remained quiet, observing, remembering. Earth's history wasn't forgotten to them. They had read about it, about world wars, about survival through ice and fire, about rebuilding from nothing, about how humans didn't give up. They adapted, they endured, and when pushed too far, they exploded. Still, the council moved forward. Human complaints about border attacks were ignored. Protests about lost colonies and stolen routes were buried under bureaucracy. When a group of empires came forward and said they would discipline Earth, no one stopped them. The majority believed it was time the humans learned their place. Before he left the chamber, the human delegate gave one last speech. He stood still, letting his eyes meet those of every leader in the room. "You think we are weak," he said. "You think we are small. But remember this, humans do not forget. Humans do not forgive. And when the day comes that you understand what we really are, it will already be too late." This time, the laughter didn't come so quickly. A cold silence settled over the chamber. A few looked uncomfortable. Others acted as if they didn't care. But something had changed. A seed had been planted, and far from the polished stone and politics of the council, ships were already on the move. Alien fleets began drifting toward human space, confident, arrogant. They believed Earth would fall in weeks, that humans would cry out for mercy. They called it justice. But somewhere back on Earth, in the quiet dark of space, humanity said nothing. They simply waited. The first attacks came like whispers in the night. No grand declarations, no formal war. Just alien ships slipping past the borders, confident and hungry. Their targets were distant colonies, small, quiet worlds scattered across the edges of human space. To the coalition, they were nothing but stepping stones. Easy, fragile, forgotten. On the colony of Holstrom, the skies lit up with fire. Alien warships rained destruction down on farms and homes. Defense systems fought back, but they were outmatched. The people, miners, farmers, scientists, picked up whatever weapons they could. Civilian pilots flew outdated fighters into battle. Kids ran messages between command posts through streets burning with plasma fire, and still they lost. The colony fell within days. The survivors were taken in chains, paraded like trophies. The coalition sent a message to the Galactic Council with pride. "The human frontier is broken. They are too weak to resist." Applause filled the chamber. Smug grins spread across ancient faces. Delegates clapped each other on the back, already calling the humans a closed chapter in galactic history. The warnings from the human delegate, forgotten, dismissed. reduced to nothing more than a dramatic speech from a species that had dared to believe it was important. But not everyone was celebrating. A few council members sat quietly, their thoughts heavy. They had read the reports. Really read them. The colony of Holstrom had fallen, yes, but it hadn't gone down easy. Even knowing they would lose, the humans had fought tooth and nail. They defended every street, every rooftop, every scrap of ground. They didn't surrender, not even when it was hopeless. That kind of resistance didn't come from pride. It came from something deeper, something dangerous. The coalition didn't care. They pushed further. More colonies were attacked. More settlements burned. But something began to change. Each new attack met with fiercer resistance. Humans began setting traps, hiding explosives under their own buildings, ambushing patrols in narrow canyons, sabotaging supply chains. Even civilians joined the fight. On one world, a cargo pilot flew her ship straight into a capital vessel, taking it down with her. On another, entire towns vanished into the wilderness, impossible to find, launching raids at night and disappearing by dawn. The coalition commanders laughed it off at first. They called it desperation, cowardice. They told their soldiers that humans were simply too emotional to surrender properly, but the soldiers weren't laughing. Whispers spread through the lower ranks. Humans didn't fight like other species. They didn't retreat when the odds turned. They got quiet. They got angry. They became something else entirely. Back in the council chamber, the human delegate returned once more. He stood on the same platform, but he was different now, his expression colder, his voice sharper. "You let this happen," he said. "You ignored the warning. You think we're weak, but soon you'll see the truth." Again they mocked him. One alien noble even stood and said, "The truth is already clear. Humanity is broken." The human looked at him for a long second, said nothing, then turned and left the chamber in silence. That silence, it stayed in the air long after he was gone, unshaken, heavy, and still. Earth made no move, no plea for help, no calls for surrender, no declarations of revenge. Just silence, a silence that began to feel less like fear and more like a storm gathering behind closed doors. The coalition thought humanity was hesitating, that Earth was paralyzed, but they were wrong. Humanity wasn't frozen, they were preparing. On the world of Lorien, things were supposed to be easy. Another human colony, another quick occupation. The alien fleet moved in with confidence, ready to repeat what had worked before. But this time, it was different. As they entered orbit, they found no resistance, no defensive formations, no messages, just a single automated beacon blinking a standard evacuation warning. The settlers had already left, but they hadn't left empty-handed. Minds drifted in the dark, cloaked beneath space debris. Weaponized satellites that looked like junk came alive. Hidden ships powered up from asteroid shadows. The invading fleet laughed until their cruisers started vanishing one by one. When the smoke cleared, half their ships were gone, and no one could explain how. Rumors spread fast. The humans are planning something, but the coalition's high command dismissed the rumors. They told everyone it was luck. A few clever tricks, nothing more. Humanity can't build advanced weapons, they insisted. They're a young species still crawling out of their cradle. They believed in numbers, in pride, in the strength of age-old empires. What they didn't understand, what they refused to see, was that humanity didn't fight for conquest or territory or glory. They fought because they remembered, and they were patient. The council chamber began to shift. A few species raised concerns, spoke of strange disappearances, patrols lost, probes returning with garbled data or not at all. Delegates argued endlessly. Some wanted to pull back just to be cautious. Others shouted louder, accusing them of cowardice. They claimed the humans were already broken, but out on the frontier, soldiers whispered different stories. Fleets that went too far into human space just vanished. Distress calls cut off mid-sentence. Ships found floating in pieces, no survivors. Hulls melted from the inside. Engines torn cleanly out, like surgical work. No patterns, no warning, and no mercy. On one captured colony, alien troops paraded in the streets, mocking the few human prisoners. They called them beaten, powerless, but that night something moved in the sky. A signal passed overhead, short, cryptic. Human, remember this. A few hours later, the entire command center exploded. No one ever figured out how they did it. The message was clear. Humanity hadn't surrendered. They were watching, and they hadn't forgotten. Back on Earth, the silence grew. Trade routes went dark. Communications from ambassadors stopped entirely. Human territories became a wall of silence, unbroken, unreadable, unreachable. The coalition thought they were winning, but the smarter ones, the ones who actually paid attention, began to feel the cold prick of something else. They were not breaking humanity. They were waking it up. It started slowly, almost too quietly to notice. Patrol fleets went out and never returned. Stations along the border reported flashes in the dark, then silence. No warnings, no wreckage, just gone. At first, the coalition dismissed the reports, said it was sabotage, technical failure, an attempt by humans to create fear. But fear was already spreading. Some of the lower-ranked officers began refusing assignments deeper into human space. They said something was wrong, that the silence didn't feel like defeat. It felt like a trap. On the colony of Aridon, alien soldiers celebrated their victory. They walked the streets with weapons raised, taunting the captured humans, turning them into entertainment. They believed Earth had given up, that the war was over, until the sky lit up. A human signal passed overhead again, short, emotionless. Remember this. Then fire erupted from the ground. Hidden explosives detonated across the barracks. Ships exploded in their hangars. Half the occupation force was gone in minutes. The rest ran, panicked, hunted through the burning streets by shadows they couldn't see. Still, the coalition leaders refused to listen. They kept pushing. More ships, more troops, more colonies seized. They couldn't see that the further they went, the worse it got. Resistance wasn't vanishing, it was evolving. Human colonies didn't fight like other civilizations. They didn't defend in straight lines. They vanished into forests, built traps out of wreckage, turned their own ruins into weapons. One freighter lured a full squadron into a minefield hidden in a gravity well. Another left behind infected supplies. Entire fleets fell sick within days, and when human fighters were caught, they didn't plead for life. They didn't talk, they just smiled. On the council floor, tension was growing. Delegates who had once laughed at the human warnings now spoke with unease. Some begged to call the coalition back. Others shouted louder, terrified of looking weak. They argued for hours, for days, but no action was taken. Just more debate, more noise. Meanwhile, Earth was silent. The humans gave no speeches, no threats, no answers, but they were building. Across hidden shipyards buried in asteroid fields and under ocean worlds, they forged weapons the galaxy had never seen. Engines that bent light, armor that absorbed energy, technology that didn't exist in any known archive. And all of it kept hidden, kept quiet, because humans didn't believe in warnings anymore. They believed in results, and in the darkness, something was moving. It wasn't loud. It didn't announce itself. It didn't come with fanfare. It was patient, and it was angry. The galaxy had mistaken silence for surrender. But it wasn't surrender. It was the final breath. Before the scream, it happened without. Warning, a coalition fleet, 50 ships strong, was moving through the edge of a quiet star system. Their mission was routine by now. Push deeper into human space, take another colony, remind Earth who held the power. The commanders were relaxed, trading jokes over comms, laughing about how quiet everything had gotten. No resistance, no movement, just more silence. Then something moved behind the dark side of the moon. At first, they thought it was an asteroid, just space debris. But then the engines came alive. Blue fire erupted from the back of a massive hull, shaking sensors across the fleet. A single warship emerged, black, angular, absorbing light like a shadow made solid. Its surface pulsed with glowing veins of red energy. It was larger than any vessel they had ever seen. More than a ship, it looked like a predator. Panic spread through the fleet, weapons locked. Alarms screamed. Plasma bolts and missiles tore across space, slamming into the human vessel, but nothing happened. The weapons struck and fizzled. Explosions bounced harmlessly off the hull. Some were absorbed completely. The coalition fleet watched in disbelief. Then the human ship fired. One broadside. One. Lances of pure energy ripped through the void. Ships didn't explode. They were sliced in half, vaporized, folded like paper. In under 60 seconds, 10 coalition ships were gone. The rest tried to run, but the human ship was faster. It hunted them down one by one. No mercy, no escape. A few survivors managed to send distorted emergency signals before vanishing into flame. The last thing their senses recorded was a line of text burned into their comm system. You were warned. The news spread faster than light. Across the galaxy, more fleets began disappearing. Entire outposts vanished. Supply stations reduced to molten craters. The silence had ended, and what came next was thunder. In the council chamber, everything changed. No more laughter, no more jokes, no more dismissive smirks. Just tension, fear. Delegates whispered to each other, asking the same question no one dared speak aloud before. What have we done? But even then, the coalition refused to admit defeat. They pulled together the largest fleet the galaxy had seen in centuries, hundreds of ships, a combined force of 5 empires. Their pride demanded it. Their arrogance insisted they could still crush humanity. All they needed was overwhelming numbers. The armada launched with banners raised high. They expected another easy victory. Instead, they found nothing, no resistance, no signals, just cold, empty space. Then the trap was sprung. From the shadows, behind moons, inside asteroid fields, hidden by cloaking systems beyond coalition tech, human warships struck. Smaller than the first, but faster, more numerous, coordinated like a single mind. Their weapons cut through shields like they weren't even there. Missiles guided by AI that learned with every shot. Railguns that bent. Gravity drones that moved like ghosts. The coalition. Fleet never had a chance. Their formations collapsed. Communications fell apart. Orders became screams. Entire wings vanished in fire. The pride of the galaxy became burning wreckage within hours, and humanity didn't even gloat. They didn't taunt, didn't send demands. They just moved on. One by one, coalition strongholds fell. Border worlds surrendered before the humans arrived. Fortresses were left in ruins. Survivors spoke of weapons that defied science, soldiers who never spoke, fleets that moved like storms. On one fallen world, a single message was left carved into the remains of the enemy capital. You were warned. The fall of the coalition's grand armada broke something in the galaxy. Not just fleets, not just empires, but belief, the deep shared belief that humanity was a weak species, a mistake, a loud emotional anomaly that would burn itself out. That belief shattered, and in its place came a silence heavier than before. News traveled faster than any ship now. Across star systems, across empires, across every outpost and capital, humanity had won. But they hadn't just won, they had crushed. Human fleets moved with a precision that terrified even the oldest civilizations. They didn't waste shots. They didn't burn cities just to make a point. Every target was chosen carefully. Command hubs, supply chains, weapons depots. One strike per world. No speeches, no drama, and yet entire planets surrendered without a single shot being fired. They had seen what happened to those who resisted. On Holstrom, the first human colony taken by the coalition, Earth returned, not just to take it back, but to leave a message. The survivors were rescued, the cities rebuilt, but every alien structure was turned to dust. Every warship in orbit was annihilated. The ruins bore a message burned into the stone. You were warned. In the Galactic Council, the chamber once filled with arrogance and mockery had turned into a tomb of shame. Delegates who had laughed now sat silent. No one made eye contact with each other. Some whispered for a ceasefire. Others argued that it was too late, that even if they begged for peace now, humanity wouldn't listen, and those whispers were right. On the capital world of Tauran Prime, one of the oldest and richest worlds in the coalition, human warships arrived without a word. The sky turned black with their numbers. Alien leaders sent desperate pleas, Messages offering surrender, reparations, total withdrawal, but Earth didn't answer. Instead, fire rained from above. Cities crumbled. Fortresses melted. The planet's proud defense grid barely lasted an hour. In 3 days, an empire 10,000 years old was erased from the stars. And still, the humans advanced. Coalition leadership collapsed. Their admirals were dead. Their councils disbanded. Some fled into the far reaches of the galaxy. Others offered their remaining fleets as tribute, begging for a chance to survive. Whole civilizations that had once helped raid Earth now sent out broadcasts of apology, but nothing could erase what had already been done. Because humanity remembered. They remembered every colony burned, every civilian enslaved, every council delegate who had laughed in their face. They remembered the silence they had been forced into, the rage they had swallowed, and now the galaxy remembered too. Finally, the remaining council called for one last meeting, desperate, trembling, a final chance to stop the storm. In that chamber, once the heart of power, sat a new kind of silence. Not the smug, dismissive silence of the past. This was the silence of fear. The human delegate returned. He said nothing at first, just looked around. The same faces who had once mocked him now couldn't hold his gaze. He didn't raise his voice, didn't speak with anger, but when he spoke, the words felt like judgment carved in stone. "We warned you," he said. "We told you what would happen if you provoked us. You laughed. You mocked. And now?" He paused. Now you see, there was no reply, no plea, no argument, just heads bowed in shame, and then he turned and left. That was it, but those words echoed far louder than any speech. The galaxy was never the same again. Empires that had ruled for millennia were ashes. Civilizations that had considered themselves untouchable now lived in the shadow of Earth. And across the stars, one warning was remembered in every language, in every home, told to every child. Do not provoke us, because humanity didn't need to threaten. They didn't need to scream. They had already proven what silence truly meant. Not weakness, but patience. Not fear, but fury waiting to be unleashed. And somewhere, in the cold dark of space, Earth returned to its silence once more, watching, waiting, just in case anyone ever forgot.